we're in a constitutional crisis, and we very well may be. I'm not trying to downplay that reality. When you have a president, which seems to be what's happening, and an administration who are defying a court order, that is ignoring the one branch of government, that is technically, I think as lawyers would define it, a constitutional crisis.
Right. Well, then through an appeal process,
through could be.
We're a little bit down the road, but
a road to a constitutional crisis.
Okay.
How's that?
Okay.
That's what a press secretary does.
The road to constitutional crisis. Boy, if that's not a title of a Rachel Maddow special, I don't know what is.
Well, there may be.
That's political commentator and occasional funny man Jon Stewart ruthlessly mocking NBC host and pretend journalist Jen Psaki and her network directly to her face. Welcome to Nerk News. I'm Nerkish, and it looks like the political hacks and establishment media might be so delusional that they actually believe their own BS about being objective journalists. Because similar to when Caitlin Collins was shocked by Colbert's audience laughing at her after he unironically called her network honest, Jen Psaki seems to be stunned by Jon Stewart pushing back on the propaganda she routinely pushes every night on her show.
Well, I will say, broadly speaking, what I'm not going to say Democrats, I'm going to say people on the left do not do that the right does very well is support within the system each other. I'm serious. And what I mean by this is this, right?
Yeah.
Theo Vaughn appears on Joe Rogan's show, right? He promotes what Joe Rogan's doing. But they all promote all of the things each other are doing and what the elected officials, I guess, are doing too. And the left is a little bit more kind of discombobulated in terms of supporting the different entities on the left. There is not a left ecosystem that matches the right ecosystem.
But Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan, I think, are different animals than any of this. I wouldn't say I don't think they're part of any machine. Don't
you think they're but they are still in the right wing ecosystem? Wouldn't you agree?
No, I would think they're in. No, I would consider them in a more probably libertarian comedic complex, more along the lines of, and if you watch or listen to their shows, a lot of times it's just pure goofing off.
Has nothing to do with politics, and oftentimes, but
almost entirely.
But they are supportive of the Trump enterprise, is what I mean. So maybe I'm loosely putting them in that category.
I think they are supportive, but not. They are not relentless in the Trump enterprise. They are not Charlie Kirk. They are not Ben Shapiro. They are very different animals. They are not invested in the shit that you get picked up and go to the headlines of media. But on balance, that's not what their shows are about.
It's so funny that she seems to think being in an echo chamber of hyper-partisans, many of who, like her, have resumes of directly working for the Democrat Party, doesn't technically make that network a mouthpiece for those values. I mean, she's pretending like there's some sort of spectrum of worldviews over there, and each of them independently determining how they're going to spin their liberal propaganda is indicative of trustworthiness, because there technically isn't some sort of shadowy figure directly telling them to do so. But the fact of the matter is they're also brainwashed, at least don't even have to bother.
And 4 hours of Joe Scarborough shouldn't be allowed in this country. and then Rachel Maddow, it's schizophrenic at times. I do think there should be some semblance of an idea that, look, they're kicking progressive ass right now. And if progressives don't organize their media, their think tanks and all that, it's going to continue to happen. It's chaos. Do they come to you every day and go, here's what we think is important to preserve and fight for whatever?
No, everybody gets a zillion press releases and pitch calls, but no.
No. I'm talking about the head of it.
Oh, no. You determine, we determine, each of us for our shows, here's what I'm going to cover today, and here's what I'm going to talk about, and here's what I think is important, which there's an independence-ish of that. And there also is, you're not waiting to be told what to say about anything. You're going to say what you think. So people can trust that, and that is a good thing.
See, I disagree with that. I think it's not that you're able to be independent. It's that you're then a prisoner purely to the minute by minutes. Purely.
You mean in terms of ratings?
The ratings, incentives, and all those other things. If you don't have the ideological component, then you don't have a governing authority of editorial authority, right?
And MSNBC, I am unburdened by not having, I can share whatever I think. I have obviously worked in Democratic politics for 20 years. I don't hide anything about that. It is a progressive leaning network. But nobody is, to the frustration at times of many elected Democrats, it is not a mouthpiece of the Democratic Party.
Notice how she's trying to argue that her network isn't an arm of the Democrat Party and can be trusted, but people like Theo Von and Joe Rogan, who have more in common with libertarians or classical liberals, can't be trusted because they think for themselves and don't carry water for her particular brand of progressive values. I mean, that support system of right-wingers that she's pretending is some cabal is just what most regular people would call friends. Joe Rogan often plugs and talks about people like Theo Von and Shane Gillis because they're all comedians who get along and like each other. She just can't process that because she's miserable, and her obsession with politics has caused her to view every relationship as transactional.
I've been shocked by how undemocratic the Democratic Party can be.
Tell me, what do you mean by, I don't disagree with you necessarily, but what do you mean by that?
By putting their foot on the scales to get, make sure that Hillary Clinton comes out of the thing, or make sure that, that they're listening to that anger about the way that even the ACA, quite frankly, struck me as a very conservative.
You mean because it didn't have a public option in it?
Correct. That it didn't address the very thing that was causing the foundational upset. I'm hearing an awful lot about separation of powers and very little about defending USAID. I'm not hearing a lot about, here's the specific program that is so valuable, and by not funding that, this is what we lose. There's been, to be fair, there's been some attempts at that, but the overwhelming majority has been, we are sleepwalking into a constitutional crisis. Again, taking the bait of the larger thing and not defending the efficiency or value of the programs. So isn't that part of why people lost faith?
Yeah. So yes, I think we're saying, well, I'm trying to say something similar, which is this.
Boom, boom.
Which is Democrats just lost everything. They control nothing. They control, I mean, they don't control the House. They don't control the Senate. They don't control the White House, and they don't control the Supreme Court. So now is the time to break some shit, right? And break some China.
They do control the email lists that continue to ask for money.
Well, that's true.
They still have that.
Stewart makes an excellent point there. It has been really curious how Democrats and their stooges in establishment media are revealing way more than they ever intended to by how they're choosing to attack Trump and defend USAID, because it's always on the grounds of them protecting themselves and their institutional power. I mean, it's almost like they've dropped all pretense of pretending to care about regular Americans or how these programs are supposedly useful to them or meant to help them in their everyday lives. Heck, even with the layoffs, they haven't really focused on what these departments do or even the people being laid off. It's always how they're personally appalled at the fact that someone like Trump even had the audacity to question these institutions in the first place. But let me know what you think. Is MSNBC more or less objective than Joe Rogan or Theo Von? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye.